Greetings, everybody! I am the Starving Martian, and the last few weeks of winter have been pretty cold up in my Martian headquarters here, that being my attic, which have forced me to take a little bit of a breather from recording anything, but it is now the first week of spring, and it seems like an appropriate time to finally tackle the Mars Attacks Baseball Special. So this is Mars Attacks Take 'em Out at the Ball Game, published by Topps Comics back in 1996. So we've looked at all the Topps Comics leading up to this point, the original miniseries, and then the 7-part ongoing series. That was supposed to go further than 7. I mean, that's what ongoing means. But issue 7 would turn out to be the last regular issue. After issue 7 would come this particular special, the Mars Attacks Baseball Special. And this is a story that was hinted at in the last couple issues of the regular series. The Martian leader, Komodov, had arranged for a baseball game to be played. Now, if you remember the series, Mars conquers the half of the Earth, and they're constantly trying to get an upper hand and get the other half as well. But Earthlings have a secret weapon, that being nuclear submarines, which the Martians cannot locate, that can fire some nuclear missiles and really mess up the Martians' day. So there's a bit of a unsteady truce between the two races, Martians and human beings. And so Komodov proposes this baseball game between the two as a show of goodwill or something of that nature. We're going to quickly see that there's little goodwill going on here. Essentially, consider this an ultra-violent version of Space Jam, although this came out first. So let's take a look and see what happens when Martians get their hands on a baseball bat. Well, you can kind of see right here what happens. At least one more person is going to have their head knocked off by a baseball bat before this is through, so I guess you could call this a doubleheader. Ba-dum-bum. Alright, so the action begins right off the bat, if I can say so, at the stadium. The Martians have assembled their best players who have learned this new Earth sport of baseball. The Earthlings have assembled their best players to take on the Martians and to prove that Earth is still the best at what they do. Unfortunately, the Martians immediately attack with an exploding baseball, and then baseball bats that conceal laser rifles and destroy the entire team. As is explained here, this game is being played on the Martian half of the planet, therefore they get to play by home rules, and home rules say they could just assassinate anyone they feel like. But obviously not having any baseball players is going to lead to a pretty boring game, so they've arranged to ship in some D-list players for the captain of the Earth team to utilize. They're also using their own bases, which are people that they've captured and are burying up to their necks in the dirt here. The idea being that the Earth team will be less than enthusiastic about running over people's heads to touch for bases to be safe at first and second and yada yada. So these are some of the people who get bussed in to be part of the Earth team. And again, they're all washouts, they're all jokes, they're all, like I said, D-listers, people who have been, playing baseball, but they're not the ones you would put on your team for the entire world to watch. And the manager has a bit of an issue with this, but what's he going to do? It's time for the games to begin. Small detail, you can notice here the Martian vendor tossing out little packages of eyeballs to the Martians for their treats. No Cracker Jacks here. But if you remember from earlier in the Topps series, Martians do seem to enjoy the taste of human eyeballs. Especially the Payax, although it seems to be a Nard getting his hands on those now. If you're unfamiliar with the terms, the Nards are the more traditional, skull-faced, big-brained Martians that we all know and love, whereas the Payaks, you can see the backs of their heads right over here, have single eyes in the middle of their heads. They're more the intellectuals, the scientists, whereas the Nards are the fighters, the soldiers. So you have a 2-page spread going on here of the security around the stadium. The Martians laughing this poor manager to derision. A little tear coming down his cheek as all of his previous team is just laid at his feet as a reminder of his failure. And so with an inferior team and Martians who will cheat at every available opportunity, the Earthmen have to get clever. And by get clever, I mean pull out every trick they ever learned watching Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry. And so that's exactly what happens. We see them being very careful around the bases, particularly this one poor little old lady. And the people, by the way, chosen to be first, second, third base, they all seem to take their role very well. Nobody's crying, nobody's screaming. They're all like, well, thank you for not stepping on my head, young man. But they literally pull the old, oh, look, it's Halley's Comet routine to get the Martians distracted. And, yeah, the Martians so completely fall for it that even after the Earth team has run its bases, they're still looking for the comet. We did not find Halley's Comet. Oh, it must have disintegrated in the atmosphere. We were lucky this time, but we gotta be careful. You know this part of the country is famous for its sudden appearances of meteors and shooting stars. Alright, and this is kind of insultive to these poor Martians, because even though they're not, I wouldn't expect them to know which comet is Halley's Comet, they're more advanced than us, spaceship-wise. I'm pretty sure they know the behavior of comets. And I'm pretty sure that after 5 minutes of looking in the skies and failing to see this, they would not still be expecting it. But either way, their next trick involves this guy here. I believe his name is Jailface? Yeah, that's what they call him. Who's a bit of a psychopath, and by a bit of a psychopath, I mean he's antisocial, he hates everyone, and he's perfectly happy and willing to wear these special cleats with, like, nails for soles, which he uses to disembowel the opposing team. And he's called safe when the home base actually reaches out and touches him. Next we see the Martians trying to get sneaky at it with another exploding ball, blowing this guy's leg off. But he reacts to it far better than you would expect. He doesn't seem to be in much pain at all, and that's because, well, this has happened to him before, apparently, and all the Martians managed to do is blow off his artificial leg. So not only does he get to make it to the next base, but he actually gets to reach first base with first base, apparently. And we find that his blown off foot actually hit second base and counted for a tag there as well. Next up on Earth's bag of tricks, our favorite little old lady home plate here insists that we take a traditional apple pie break, because what's more American than baseball and apple pie? But what the Martians don't realize is that this apple pie is laced with apple brandy. And apparently Martians do not hold their apple brandy very well, because before you know it, they're so tipsy and turvy that they're letting players just walk all over the bases and rack up their scores. At this point, it's determined that things are not going the way the Martians planned. Commandant holds this one particular guy, personally responsible, which does not bode well for him at all, and orders the Saddam, however you pronounce that unit, the Search and Destroy Advanced Armored Mechanical Insect here, to come in and destroy Martian and human alike. Just clear the field. These Saddam units are giant robot ants with human heads attached to them for reasons. And so they wipe out the Martians first and turn their attention to the Earth players. But before it can unleash its beams of death, the president calls with an ultimatum using the old, kill these players and I'll blow you up with my nuclear submarine trick that everybody loves so much, which for reasons known only to him gets a good laugh out of Commodore. The Earth team wins, but a video is sent to the president wherein Commodore says, you might have run this round, but I'll get you next time, Gadget. Next time! Yeah. Commodore was such a brilliant strategist and an excellent character in the original miniseries and in most of the 7-issue run, but he's taken a bit of a turn for the silly by this point. But so he knocks this unfortunate guy's head clean off his shoulders to smear onto the billboard, "Wait till next year." Well, there would be no next year because there's only 2 more issues of Topps Mars Attacks to go, not counting the Image crossovers. Now, this is interesting. I've told you that the regular series ran a total of 7 issues, but this clearly advertises number 8, the Senior High School from Mars. Now, if you're curious what that is, it would eventually be released as a 2-part miniseries called Mars Attacks High School. And there's actually an ad somewhere in here. And I'm completely missing it, but there is an ad in here for Mars Attacks High School. Here it is, on the letters page. Genie and the High School from Mars. That is totally not what it's going to be called, but this is what they're going to use as a cover. So, yeah, keep your eyes out for that, Mars Attacks High School. That's how the Mars Attacks comic series from Topps is going to go out. Not exactly the best way to go out, but... And here's an ad for one of those novels that I covered early on. And so here's a nice picture, almost framing worthy. And there you go. Oh, plus an exclusive offer for an exclusive limited prequel comic from Independence Day, which actually does sound kind of cool. And that was Mars Attacks Baseball. This is Topps at its silliest. When the comics first started coming out, they were pretty serious for, a comic about giant... big brain, skull-faced aliens taking over the planet. But by this point, and of course this is after the movies come out, which I'm sure everybody who saw the movie is expecting Mars Attacks to be a comedy now. So that must have had an influence. So the storyline has taken a turn, probably not for the best. The story's a little weaker than it has been in the past, but it's still good, goofy, gory fun, and I do quite enjoy this issue. It's available as a single issue, pretty cheap to pick up off of eBay or your local comic shop. It's also included in Mars Attacks Classics, volume number 3. So, guys, this has been The Starving Martian, and we'll come back at you another time with another review. But until then, as I always say, keep watching the skies. Later.